116 million. Talk about ironic, because that is the fee that Manchester City have paid for Elliot Anderson. And if I'm being honest, my first reaction, and to be honest, my reaction all summer has been no. No, I do not think Elliot Anderson is worth that amount of money in a normal market. But this is where the video actually becomes interesting, because the question is not just, is he worth 116 million? I think the better question we got to ask is, what have Manchester City seen that makes them willing to go there? Because City don't usually spend £100 million. I mean, they've done it once with Jack Grealish, but usually they stay below those kind of fees. And I mean, they're not looking at Anderson and seeing some type of like highlight player. They're not buying him because, you know, he scores 20 goals from midfield like Frank Lampard. They're not buying him because he's the flashiest midfielder in the Premier League. I'm sure they're looking at the profile, the physicality, the ball progression, the dual power, the press resistance, the ability to play as a 6 and an 8 and a connector in midfield. And that's probably where the fee conversation starts to, not going to say make sense, but I can understand from a Manchester City POV as to why they would do that. Not because I agree with the price, but listen, I can understand why Manchester City would be tempted. Let me know your thoughts on the fee, and let's get straight into the video. So Anderson, of course, signing from Nottingham Forest. He came through at Newcastle. He had a loan at Bristol Rovers and then, of course, moved to Forest. And since then, his rise, if I'm being honest, has actually been relatively quick. In this past season, played 38 Premier League games, started 37 of those, scoring 4 goals and getting himself 4 assists across all competitions. As you can see, 50 appearances, 4 goals, 5 assists, and 11 yellow cards. So basic numbers, nothing spectacular, nothing out of the ordinary or anything like that. Nothing that would scream to you 116 million. But if you look at Anderson purely through goals and assists, obviously you'll never understand the fee. And I've got to look at it through a different lens, because that's not where I feel his value is. His value is in the middle of the pitch. He is a volume midfielder. Lots of touches, lots of passes, lots of defensive actions, lots of duels and ball progression. And that's probably why City were interested in the first place, because modern top-level midfields are not just about nice passing anymore. They need to survive pressure, especially in the Premier League. They need to win second balls. They need to stop transitions. They need to move the ball forward quickly. And if I'm being honest, Anderson does do that quite a bit. So with Elliot Anderson, he's awkward to box in. He's listed as a defensive midfielder, but he doesn't just sit. He can play deeper, of course. He can play as an 8. He can be used as that connector between the build-up and the final third. That's probably the first thing City like. Gives you a bit of everything. Wants the ball, can receive under pressure, can carry through the contact, play forward, press, win duels, and he has enough engine to keep impacting different phases of the game. I always feel that when you're looking at something like 116 million, you've always got to look at it, I guess the value is deeper than that, right? He had 3,300 touches, 2,038 successful passes, 54 chances created, and 9 big chances created, and 62 touches in the opposition box. That tells you he isn't just a passenger, because he's always involved. He gets on the ball in deeper zones, helps move the team forward, then still finds ways to arrive higher up the pitch. That is probably what City are paying for. They're not just the output, not, just the profile. They're a midfielder who can help you control games but still give you legs. And the passing numbers are probably the clearest reason why City would look at him seriously. He ranks in the 95th percentile for forward passes completed and the 95th percentile for progressive passes completed. So that's not really a small detail, because as we know, City, they don't just need midfielders who can keep possession. They need midfielders who can move teams, receive, scan, break a line, shift the tempo, and keep the attack flowing. Anderson seemingly does that well. He's not just playing safe sideways passes to protect his completion rate. He looks forward, he plays with intent, and that matters in a City midfield. Here's the catch. Doing it at Nottingham Forest, as I've always mentioned, and doing it at Manchester City, for example, are two very different things. At Forest, there's more room for risk, more room for messy moments, more room to play with instinct. And, at City, the game is cleaner, quicker, and more demanding. Ball comes faster, the press comes faster, the expectation is higher. And if you lose it in bad areas, City can be exposed in transition, as we've seen. that is where my doubt for someone like Elliot Anderson kind of comes in, because he does have the tools, let me not lie, but City are not paying for tools. You know what I mean? They're paying elite money, and elite money comes with elite expectations. So where I can still see the logic, he gives City something, that they probably needed, which is, if I'm being honest, legs and dual power in midfield. Last season, he made 516 defensive contribution, won 297 duels, made 104 tackles, 41 interceptions, 306 recoveries, and one possession 25 times in the final third. Like, that's some serious defensive volume. And it matters because City are not always just building attacks. They've got to defend space, they're defending transitions, they're trying to stop counters, before they become dangerous. And that's where Anderson becomes valuable because, as I mentioned, he can press, recover, complete the midfield physically, and he can win contacts. He can slow the game down by winning fouls. He won 80 fouls, which kind of says a lot about how he protects the ball and draws pressure. That part of his game is very useful. He's not soft in midfield. He does not disappear when the game becomes physical. And again, like I said, that's probably the big reason why City may have just seen him as more than just a tidy passer. But listen, like with everybody, there's blatant flaws. He's not a perfect defensive midfielder. He ain't a Rodri. He's not an elite controller yet. He commits fouls quite a lot. He picks up cards, and he can still look like a player trying to solve too much on his own. And not necessarily a bad thing, because at Forest, it's Forest, but sometimes they did need him to do something different, in a Forest kind of team and a setup. But at City, he would need to simplify certain parts of his game. So less forcing, more control, less chasing, more positioning, less chaos, more precision. That's the kind of jump you're looking at, because right now, Anderson's biggest strength is that he impacts everything. But at City, the question is whether he can refine that into a cleaner role. Can he become the midfielder who gives them energy without losing control? Can he play next to a Rodri and help protect transitions? Can he be trusted in build-up against the best pressing teams? Can he turn those progressive passing numbers into elite-level influence? That is key, influence. That is what this fee is going to really be about. Not the player he is today, because obviously City are buying, as everybody loves to say, you're buying for the next 5 to 10 years, right? But City, especially if he, becomes a Premier League proven player, as he is at this current moment in time, an England international, a two-way midfielder who can progress the ball, win duels, press, carry, and survive pressure in a City system, then yeah, City will argue that the fee was blatantly worth it, in the long run. But for me right now, nah, I still think it's too much. 160 million is not a good player type of money. It's got to be elite player. That is superstar midfield money. Vitinha, Joao Neves, the players of that kind of Pedri, De Jong, that's the kind of ilk I'm looking at when you're, I guess, spending this kind of money. So I'm not fully convinced he's worth that type of fee yet. I do understand why City want him. I understand why the profile kind of appeals. I understand why the market pushes the price up, and also English tax. We all know about it. It's been around since, Jesus was a boy. But if City are right about his development and they turn him into a controlled, physical, press-resistant, line-breaking midfielder at the top level, then obviously this could age very differently. And that's the gamble. Anderson is not being brought for what he has already done. He's being brought for what City believe he can become. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, people, in regards to Elliot Anderson. Do you think he's worth the fee? I guess that's really the question I want to ask you as the viewer. Keep the same energy, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys real soon.